Los Angeles, 1947, a city of glitz, glamour, and deep shadows. On the morning of January 15th, a gruesome discovery shattered the illusion of Hollywood dreams. The bisected body of a young woman was found in a vacant lot in Leimert Park, her face mutilated into a macabre grin. The murder would grip the nation, and the victim's name, Elizabeth Short, would forever be etched into history as the Black Dahlia. This was no ordinary murder. It was a crime so brutal, so methodically staged, that it seemed the work of a twisted mind well versed in the dark art of butchery. The newspapers sensationalized the case, feeding the public's morbid curiosity, while law enforcement faced a labyrinth of dead ends. Decades later, the mystery remains, taunting investigators and fueling conspiracy theories. Who killed the Black Dahlia, and why? This story pieces together every known fact, every chilling theory, and every suspect in one cohesive, terrifying narrative. The truth, as you'll soon see, may be even darker than fiction. Elizabeth Short grew up in Medford, Massachusetts, a girl with striking beauty and a restless spirit. She was drawn to the allure of Hollywood, dreaming of stardom like so many before her. But reality was cruel. She drifted through various cities, struggling to find stability, living off the kindness of strangers and fleeting romances. Her final days remained clouded in uncertainty. Witnesses reported seeing her in various locations across Los Angeles in early January 1947. On January 9th, she was last seen leaving the Biltmore Hotel, allegedly heading to meet her sister. But she never arrived. 6 days later, she would be found, lifeless, butchered, and posed in a manner that defied comprehension. On the morning of January 15th, 1947, a woman named Betty Bersinger was walking with her young daughter along Norton Avenue in Leimert Park when she saw what she thought was a discarded mannequin. As she got closer, horror set in. The body of a young woman was severed at the waist, completely drained of blood. Her pale skin was stark against the dew-covered grass. Her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating a grotesque Glasgow smile. The brutality didn't end there. Her intestines were tucked neatly beneath her arms positioned in a disturbing display. There were ligature marks on her wrists and ankles, signs of prolonged torture. There was no blood at the scene, meaning she had been killed elsewhere, meticulously cleaned, and then transported and arranged in this sickening tableau. The police arrived quickly, and the case was immediately recognized as something beyond the ordinary. This wasn't a crime of passion or a simple murder. This was a ritualistic execution, calculated and performed with surgical precision. Almost as soon as Elizabeth Short was identified, the press seized upon the case, dubbing her the Black Dahlia, a reference to her dark hair, rumored fondness for sheer black clothing, and possibly a play on the Blue Dahlia, a film noir of the era. Sensational headlines painted her as a seductress, a femme fatale entangled in a life of mystery and deception. The Los Angeles Examiner played a particularly ghoulish role. Before informing her family of her death, they called her mother under the guise of a job inquiry, gathering as much personal information as possible before finally revealing the horrific truth. The media fed the public a tantalizing blend of fact and fiction, exploiting every detail they could find. But the media attention did more than just shock the public. It invited a deluge of false confessions, copycat crimes, and taunting letters from someone claiming to be the killer. The murderer was playing a game, and the entire city of Los Angeles was his audience. The LAPD launched what would become one of the most exhaustive investigations in American history. Over 150 suspects were interrogated, yet the case remained as elusive as ever. Among the most compelling suspects were Dr. George Hodel, a brilliant yet deeply disturbing physician with alleged ties to underground surgeries and grotesque experiments. Hodel's own son, former LAPD homicide detective Steve Hodel, later claimed that his father was the killer, citing compelling evidence found in old police files, including a recording of Hodel saying, "They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." His medical background aligned with the precise surgical mutilation found on Short's body. Furthermore, secret police surveillance allegedly caught him confessing to the crime, though it was never pursued further. Leslie Dillon, a bellhop and aspiring writer with an unsettling knowledge of the murder details. Dillon wrote letters to the police discussing the crime in disturbing detail, even mentioning details that had not been publicly released. Some investigators suspected he had either committed the murder himself or had inside knowledge of the real killer. He was briefly detained but ultimately released due to lack of conclusive evidence. Mark Hansen, a wealthy nightclub owner and Hollywood player. Elizabeth Short had stayed in his home on occasion, and her address book was found in his possession after her death. Stories abound that Mark was obsessed with Elizabeth and upset at her for denying his advances. Some speculated he had ties to organized crime and may have been involved in her murder, either directly or through his criminal connections. However, no direct link was ever established. While these men were among the strongest suspects, no conclusive evidence was ever found to secure an arrest. The case has remained unsolved for decades, with almost all directly involved persons having passed away. Hollywood has immortalized the murder in films, books, and television. From LA Confidential to American Horror Story, the case continues to inspire nightmares, and theories still swirl about police corruption, underground Hollywood crime rings, and sadistic killers operating with impunity. However, we have sifted through the evidence, the suspects, and the eerie unanswered questions surrounding Elizabeth Short's brutal murder, and one name stands out above the rest: Dr. George Hodel. His medical expertise matches the precise surgical mutilations inflicted on Short. His own son, former LAPD detective Steve Hodel, spent decades compiling damning evidence that places his father not only at the scene of the crime, but at the center of a web of other gruesome murders. The eerie connections to surrealist artist Man Ray's disturbing imagery, the cryptic handwriting similarities in the taunting letters sent to the press, and the LAPD's own secret wiretap suggesting they knew Hodel was guilty, yet chose to protect him, paint a chilling picture of a man who not only had the means and opportunity, but also the sadistic nature to commit such an atrocity. Even his home, the infamous Sowden House, was said to contain secret tunnels and rooms that may have been used for his alleged crimes. Additionally, handwriting analysis suggests that letters sent to the press by the killer may have been written by Hodel himself. Could the Black Dahlia case finally be solved? Unfortunately, George Hodel died on May 16, 1999, at the age of 91, and we may never know for certain. While absolute proof remains elusive, artificial intelligence pieces together the patterns, the motives, and the evidence pointing to George Hodel as the most likely killer. What is certain is that the Black Dahlia case serves as a haunting reminder of the darkness lurking beneath society's surface. 77 years later, Elizabeth Short's shadow still lingers over Los Angeles, her murder forever frozen in time, waiting for justice that may never come.